Hey guys, this is another video tutorial of Windows system programming. In this tutorial we are going to see about the conditional variable in Windows operating system. So basically conditional variable is a synchronization method. It is user mode object, so cannot shared across different processes. It allows thread to wait until particular condition satisfied. Conditional variable is just a boolean value under if condition. So here I am assuming there is a one printer, multifunction printer. It can perform three action like printing, scanning and fax. So suppose for fax required only a scanning and printer will be free. So while sending the fax, the printer resource will be free, but I want to use that at a time. So what will happen, uh, if I'm using the mutex, then mutex will lock the resource. Whole resource means printer will be locked for a time. Okay, that time only one thing I can perform, either printing or scanning. But with the help of conditional variable, we can perform simultaneously scanning and printing, because while sending we don't require printer setting, but receiving the fax we required the printing. So this is another case. So why we are using the conditional variable, there are certain advantages over the mutex and semaphore. So conditional variable provide atomicity for the unlock and lock and sleep operation. Sometimes we want to block until some condition is met. Automatically and atomically unlock mutex or semaphore and then call sleep function, and after wait it automatically relocked. So mutex, we know that mutex are good for controlling access to a critical region. In mutex, if we call sleep function, then it will become a rest condition. It will never wake up. Same thing happen in semaphore. Semaphore are good for situation where counting is needed. In semaphore, if we call sleep function, then it will become rest condition. We can use mutex with certain condition, means mutex or conditional variable if we are using, then we can successfully use this resource. So in conditional variable there is a classical problem, producer consumer problem. So producer, see here, producer will produce, and here is a buffer, I'm taking the buffer, and consumer will consume from this buffer. So producer produce until buffer full. When buffer full, then it will go in a sleep mode, and then again it will wake up when the particular condition is met. Same thing in consumer consume until buffer empty. When buffer empty, then it will go in a sleep mode, and then if particular condition met, then again it will wake up. So in Windows there are four APIs. First one is the initialize condition variable. It will initialize the conditional variable. Then sleep conditional variable CS, critical section here. So it will sleep the particular thread into sleep mode. Wake up condition, this API used for single thread, and this API wake all condition variable is used for the multiple thread. It will wake up the all threaded. So if you are not aware how to create thread, then you can check my tutorial number 10 and tutorial number 21 for critical section for thread synchronization, and also you can check description for above tutorial link. So here is the initialize conditional variable APIs. Initialize a conditional variable void. It will take one argument. I'll show you how. I'll show you later. And this function does not return anything. So don't forget to read about the remarks section. Sleep condition variable CS. Sleep on the specified conditional variable and release the specified critical section as an atomic operation. In atomic, why we are using the conditional variable? Because in conditional variable perform all the action in atomic way. Means it will go in a sleep, it will wake up the thread and perform some action, and then signal to the another thread. These things happen in single clock cycle, means atomic operation. Wake all conditional variable, wake all thread waiting on the specified conditional variable. So again this function does not return anything, it take one conditional variable. I'll show and wake conditional variable function. So wake condition variable, this one is for the single thread, and wake all conditional variable for the if we have a multiple thread waiting. So there is here the some example you can refer, and also don't forget to read about this thing, conditional variable. So we have to initialize, see here, conditional variable structure, and we can initialize it either in a two-way, static or dynamic. So I'll use here initialize conditional variable to initialize the structure dynamically or assign the constant variable conditional variable in it. But I'll recommend that you can use the initialize conditional variable, this thing. So this one is the I'm taking the reference from the last tutorial number 21, critical section, how to use. So if you see here in main function, there are two thread for producer and consumer thread handle here. I am initialize the critical section. Then step 1 is the initialize conditional variable CV. So I'll use here one initialize TI so I'll use here, conditional variable I have to use here. Conditional variable, I'm using here CV. So what will happen, I've already initialized the critical section with CS. I have already making the critical section and conditional variable as a global, and then after that I'm initialize the conditional variable. Then I'm creating the two thread here, the producer thread. For if you want to more information about that, you can check my tutorial number 10 for how to create thread. So I'm creating here two thread. Then after that we have the step 3 is we have to wake all conditional variable. So I'm using here the here wake all conditional variable, and the argument we have to pass here in the form of pointer, this is the CV. Okay, and then step 4 is wait for the single object, because we are using the two threads, so we have to write 2 times for wait for single object. So what will happen here, our thread function. So in thread function there is a one critical section and leave critical section. Between these two provide the lock. In between this we have to write our logic for the producer and consumer. So if you see here, producer will produce until buffer full, and consumer can consume until buffer empty. So we have to define one buffer for that. So what I'll do here, I'll take one global variable. Let's say I'm assuming name is buffer, initialize with 0, and the maximum items, let's say I'm assuming here 20. Then in critical section we have to write our condition while if the buffer value is 20, then producer can produce, and that time we have to call the sleep conditional variable in critical section, and it will take the 3 argument. So I forget to tell about the sleep conditional variable. Sleep conditional variable in critical section function. So it will take three arguments. First one is the conditional variable, whatever globally we have declared, the critical section. And these all are pointers, and time, how much time it will wait. And the return type is the bool type, and the return value function succeed, the return value is non-zero. If the function failed, so return value is 0, and we can print with the help of getLastError function. So whenever we are going to use the sleep conditional variable CS, then we have to call these two function, WakeConditionalVariable or WakeAllConditionalVariable. So you can check here the some programming example for that. So I'll use here the first argument is conditional variable. So I'll use here CV, then critical section CS, and then time I'm using here infinite. Okay, then it will be wait. Then if buffer value does not meet this condition, then I'm increasing the buffer value, and then see out, I have to produce something. So what I'm doing here, I'm writing here buffer, then end of this. Here in sleep conditional variable, I'm not checking any condition. If you want, then you can check. So producer, that's it. And then after that, we have to you can write here WakeConditional variable. Then CV. So what I'll do here, just replace with here. Then we have to call that. If suppose we have a two consumer, then it will be helpful to make conditional variable parameter. Then I'm using some delay function for that. Let's say delay would be 1 second. So we have completed our buffer for producer. Then check for the consumer. So consumer, I'm using here, we have to check the condition if buffer is empty or not. So while buffer equals to 0, then we have to use the sleep conditional variable CS for CV. Second argument is critical section, then CS, then time. So I'm using here infinite, then close it. Then here we have to consume our data. So here I'm writing cout, then buffer, end of this line, consumer. That's it. And then wake conditional variable. So just I'm copying here and pasting it here, Control V. But here we have to perform this in a loop. So what I'll do here, I'm using one for loop here. So here I am using the for loop for 20 times. It will be easy to running our loop. Then same thing. the maximum capacity of buffer is 20, and I am running this loop for 20. You can use up to the infinite time, depend on you. So if you see the code flow, we have created the handle for the edge producer and consumer thread. Then I'm initializing the critical section, then initialization for the conditional variable. Then I'm creating here the two thread. Then I'm waking up all the thread, and then single for all thread. Then this one is the I'm taking the critical section and conditional variable. This is the structure, and here I'm initializing dynamically. Initialize critical section and initialize conditional variable. So producer thread, we have to enter in a critical section. This thing and this thing becomes your lock. Then I'm checking the condition. If buffer equal to not 20 means buffer is till now empty, then this condition will not match, and we are incrementing the buffer value. So buffer value is by default 0, so it will increment here 1, then print 1, then it will go in a sleep mode. Then after sleeping, it wake the conditional variable. Then again it will go and check. So this is the non-deterministic thing. Okay, you can get any output, but if you see the output, I'll show you. So rebuild is started. See, rebuild succeeded. Now we are going to check the debug. If you see here, the producer produced till 20, means I'm running the loop for 20 times, but the maximum buffer size is 20, which is the shareable between the two threads. Here's the 20, then consumer. So there is some problem. Okay, then we have to rectify it. So in consumer thread, so I forget to write this thing. So after printing, we have to decrement here, otherwise it will not consume. So rebuild once. Here the rebuild succeeded. Then go to debug, and now I hope so we'll get the exact result what we want. So 10, 11, see here 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13 till 1. So whatever we have produced from 1 to 20 consumed by the consumer, it will 20 to 1. So this was the basic program of conditional variable, why we are using. Hope you like this video. Thanks for watching this video. Do hit comment, share and subscribe this channel.